Hello and welcome to the Responsive Family Sleep Podcast. I'm your host, Kim Hawley, holistic sleep coach, lactation consultant, peaceful parenting educator, and mom. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by all the conflicting sleep info, frustrated with sleep information that just plain felt wrong, or searched desperately for a truly gentle and responsive sleep approach, then you are in the right place. In each episode, we'll be answering your most pressing baby and toddler sleep questions, busting those sleep myths, and helping you understand truly developmental, biologically normal baby and toddler sleep, plus encouraging you to trust your intuition along the way. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. This week we are going to talk about dropping naps. How do you know when it's time to drop a nap? What does that look like? What are some common times? Nap transitions can be frustrating. They can be so frustrating. And I often find that parents don't know what to expect, right? And that sometimes they're jumping to drop naps way too soon. And other times they're just expecting it to be a clean, quick, smooth process when it's not. And other times they just don't know how to navigate the messiness that comes with dropping naps. And it's just, there's so much, right? And so much depends on how your kiddo is moving through the process. How much control do you actually have with them being in daycare, with them, what's their childcare situation, and just your kiddo in general. Some kids just move through these transitions so much smoother and easier than other kiddos. And that's sleep, right? That's parenting. That is life. So let's talk about some common nap transition times to start, right? Now, in the first 6 months, we have lots of naps, and they are fluid and they are flexible. I don't really consider most of that the gradual process of having less naps throughout the day as nap transitions, because there isn't really a lot of a rhythm, and it's not something we have much control over. Maybe that like 3 to 4 that happens somewhere between 3 to 6 months, often closer to 6 months, but it depends on how long of a napper your baby is and how long they're comfy being awake and how much sleep they need overall. Maybe you could consider that a transition, but really in the first 6 months, I feel like it's just very fluid. And it depends on your baby's experience. So, our first real kind of like older baby nap transition is that 3 to 2. And that tends to happen around 7 to 9 months. So it's kind of a big range, right? Of course, some babies might drop a little sooner. Some babies might drop a little older. But that's our common range. This is somewhere in that 7 to 9 months. And then we're on 2 naps for quite a bit of time. And then we drop down to 1 nap. Often, somewhere between 14, 15 to 18 months, maybe average being 16 months in there. Of course, some babies drop earlier, right? Or some toddlers drop earlier, some toddlers drop a bit later. This one is a really wide range, even with the average range. And that's hard because sometimes it's like, is it time to tinker with the naps? Or is it time to really drop to 1 nap? But if you think that's a wide range, then let's talk about when we drop the nap altogether. And that could be anywhere on average from 2.5 to 4. And yet, again, some toddlers drop the nap earlier, some toddlers drop the nap later. I guess really they're preschoolers at that point. So these are just general guides, right? They're just general guides. And whether or not it's time to drop the nap or time to just adjust the nap schedule depends. So I think it's worth considering if your little one is fighting naps, do we need to just tinker with the nap timing before we go straight to dropping a nap, right? Because fighting naps and skipping naps can be a sign it's ready to drop that you're ready to drop a nap, or it can be a sign that our nap rhythm is just not working anymore, or it can be a sign that we need to work on our transition into the naps, right? Like, do we need a bit of a wind down time? Do we need lower stimulation ahead of the naps? Or do we need more activity between the naps to tire them out, right? So there's a lot of factors here. And so if we're fighting naps, it could mean we need more time awake, right, before the naps. It could mean that we're asking them to nap too much. So I see this a lot when the second nap is getting a bit dicey and all over the place. We might need to cap that first nap, right? So we need to tinker a bit with when the sleep happens, how long they're awake. We might need to tinker a bit with how much sleep they need overall, but also, like, it's not great if they only get one nap and it's really early in the day. So if there's no way they can make it, let's say, to one nap, then we might want to cap the first nap to get a second nap. So I hope that makes sense, right? We're playing around with the distribution of sleep and the timing of sleep to see if we can make that number of naps work until they're more ready to drop the nap. Now, actually dropping a nap is messy. It is. And it's really common for that messiness to happen, over a few weeks or more. And for you to have days where they're bouncing back and forth. So if we're talking about 3 naps to 2, it's normal for them to have days where they're on 3 naps, the next day they're on 2 naps, the next day they're on 3 naps, and then, a few days of 2 naps, and then, we're back to a 3 nap day, and to kind of bounce back and forth. And so I will often suggest to clients to look for signs earlier in the day to see if you can get a clue about where things are going, and just kind of triage your day accordingly when we're in the middle of a nap transition. And that can look like, they're tired extra early for that morning nap, or the morning nap is really short. And you're like, there's no way we're going to get 2 naps done today, right? This is definitely going to be a 3 nap day. Great. Try to help your second nap set you up for success for your third nap, right? So maybe don't let it go for 2 hours or something like that. That will not set you up for success for your third nap, just as an example. And so that can work well for a lot of families to kind of think like, okay, are there clues to how the day is going to go that'll let me do a little bit of nap shaping, a little bit of nudging these naps to set us up for better success so that we can avoid some of those really awkward, headed into bedtimes in a really awkward place. It does not always work, of course. So it's a tool. Nap transitions can also mean some fluctuating bedtimes, right? That's normal, more so than we would, ideally like at other times. And it just can be messy. And so it's a lot of patience, right? Sometimes they are ready to drop the nap before they are ready to be on the next nap schedule. And so we just need to give their body a chance to adjust. And that means patience and, maybe a bit of patience with ourselves, because it can be frustrating when you're like, I don't know what to expect from the day. I don't know how this day is going to play out. I don't know what that's going to mean for headed into bedtime and what that's going to look like. So it's messy, right? And it just is part of that transition that it is messy. So we have these roughly regular ranges where many babies drop naps, right? And we know that fighting naps and skipping naps can be signs that it's time to drop a nap. And it can also mean that we need to do some tinkering with the nap schedule first. And that's often where I will start before suggesting that it's time to drop the nap. depending on the big picture, of course, and that we can do a little bit of tinkering. And then eventually we're going to drop that nap, right? And that dropping a nap is not a smooth, quick, easy, clean transition. It is a messy, drawn out transition. And that's just how it goes. That's how the process is. So if you're near a nap transition, I hope this gives you a few things to think about. If you're far away from a nap transition, enjoy being in a good rhythm. Know that sometimes you still need to make a few adjustments, as babies and toddlers sometimes need more awake time just gradually as they move through time and get older, even though we're not in a nap transition space. I know that in the middle of a nap transition, it is messy, it is chaotic, and it will settle down. It really will. And then you can kind of reassess and see if there's anything else you want to tweak and make changes to. But in the middle of that transition, it's a time to really, move through it, get through it, and come out on the other side. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this episode left you feeling more informed, confident, and encouraged on your sleep journey. And just a reminder before you go that nothing in this episode is individualized to your specific sleep situation, nor is it to be taken as medical advice. Take what resonates, ignore what doesn't, and check with your healthcare provider about any medical concerns. Take a moment to subscribe to this podcast so that you'll never miss an episode. And take a moment to rate, review, or share an episode you love on social media. All of that helps parents just like you find me, this podcast, and this gentle and responsive sleep information. I'll see you next time.